Greetings, Paradise Church family members and friends. So glad to be able to be with you tonight, Friday night. I wish you a happy Sabbath. And we have something very important for you tonight. Pastor Ryan some time ago told me the story about his brother's experience that he had that was kind of scary. And he has recorded that for our benefit. So I know you'll look forward to seeing this testimony. It's a beautiful, exciting one. God is powerful and good, and it fits perfect with the situation that we're living in today. So sit back at home there and enjoy this beautiful presentation of God's goodness and mercy.
Praise the Lord, everyone. Pastor Ryan Johnson here. And for today's testimony session, I have something very special. We happen to be in Charlotte, North Carolina for my mother's 70th birthday, and I'm here with my older brother, Robert. Hello. Who has a powerful testimony. Now, I've told some of this testimony in some of my sermons, but people have been very interested and have come up to me, Bobby, saying, you know what? I'd like to hear this testimony straight from the source. And today we are going to get that opportunity. Bobby, you just jump in wherever you want to. Tell what the Lord's done for you.
Okay, well, thank you. Wow, this is incredible. First, I must say how touched I am that so many people have been touched by my story and my testimony and everything. And it's hard to believe it's been 4 years since then. Sometimes it seems like yesterday. But yeah, just a little bit about myself. I'm a musician, as you might know, and at the time I was playing for another church. And actually on this particular night, May the 26th, 2015, actually.
And this is in Atlanta area?
Atlanta, yeah. Atlanta, Georgia. It was on a Tuesday night, and we had just been rehearsing because we were ready to do a concert the next evening, and it was a very intense rehearsal because we had a new composition that the Minister of Music had just a classical composition of "How Great Thou Art." Never forget. We were practicing that. And I had a great big piano piece to do. So once we were finished, it was late. So I decided to go to the store and get something to eat and all that. Because at this particular point, my wife and my kids were out of town. They were out of the country, as a matter of fact. So I knew that I had to come home to an empty house by myself. And usually when I leave the house, when I'm by myself, I leave the radio playing just so it won't seem so eerie and all that kind of stuff. And so, by this time, it was very, very late. School had just let out for a lot of the high school kids in the area. And once as I was driving, and I remember turning into the subdivision where we lived, and I saw these two young fellas. They didn't look suspicious or anything. They're just walking, and I passed by them because we have a lot of young people that live on that particular street. People go out, they walk the dog. Sometimes they just go out and hang out because they're glad school's out and stuff. So, but it was just those two walking, and one had a hoodie on, of course. The other one had a t-shirt on, and I passed by him. Now, one of the things I like to do is listen to books on tape because I also traveled a lot. And I was listening to a story, and I've done this before. I just so happened to miss the turn onto my street. I was getting into the story, and I just forgot the street. I chuckled to myself. So I said, let me go on down to the cul-de-sac, turn around to get to the street. But just so happened as I did that, it gave these two guys time to reach the street and walk, turn onto my street where I was. So as I've done for the past 20 years or so, I went to the mailbox, checked the mail, as I've always done. And I remember as I was opening mailbox and I was opening the garage door with my garage opener, they passed by the car really close. And I thought to myself, well, that was kind of close. They just kept going. And so then I pulled into the driveway, into the garage. And soon as I got into the garage, I remember gathered my stuff, and I always make sure I say a prayer right before I go into the house, quickly thanking the Lord for a safe trip and all that kind of stuff. But then, as I was gathering my stuff, and I grabbed my cell phone. I had two cell phones. One that they issued me on my my job that I do during the day, which is social work, state issued, then my personal cell phone. And so as soon as I opened the door, the one that had the hoodie on had the gun in my face. It was so quick. You have time to register, and he's already in your face, he's yelling at you and all that kind of stuff. Now you think in the movies they make it look so cool, and I would do this, I would do that, but when you least expect something like that, and that's something that's generally never happens, you don't know what to think. So there's a temporary a moment of paralysis or shock, if you will.
Yeah.
You're thinking, is this really happening? So he's yelling at me, get out of the car. And
well, let's set the scene here. So you are in your garage, in your car.
Yeah.
And you're about to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And they had followed you into the garage.
Yeah, they did.
And when you opened the door.
Yeah, he was standing right there, kind of blocking my way so I couldn't get directly out. He was there, and the other one was at the entrance to the garage at the time. Okay. So he had the gun. It was a large gun. I don't know much about guns. It was a large gray silver handgun with a black. The butt of the gun was black. And I remember him pointing it at me, and I was shaking so hard. And he ordered me out of the car. But as I got ready to turn to get out, I accidentally dropped my cell phone onto the ground in the garage. And the case came off and broke into 3 pieces. He got mad at that. And I picked up the phone, gave him the phone, and I got out. And that's when I saw the other guy. He was at the entrance to the garage. And so they had me to first go outside. Now, this is maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. All the neighbors are asleep, so there are no witnesses or anything. And they're both standing side by side, and they're pointing the gun at me, and they're calling me every name in the book that I can't repeat on television. And so they said, okay, get on the ground, and they're telling me not to look at them. So I get on the ground right behind the tires of my car, face down. We've had spiders and scorpions go around there. I was hoping, and they took my my wallet and my keys and all that kind of stuff, and they went to the car while I was face down on the concrete there, and they went in there and just took whatever they wanted. And then that's when I was hoping they weren't going to take my state issued phone, but they did take that and whatever else they took. And then they went through my wallet, and they were kind of upset because I didn't have any cash. So they kept saying, well, I know you've got probably some stuff in the bank account, so give us your PIN number. So I kind of took my PIN number and flipped it, so if they happened to take my wallet, they couldn't get any money out. And I overheard them say, well, let's take him with us to the bank. And I thought, well, if we go to the bank and he goes there and realizes that I gave him the wrong PIN, then they may shoot me there. So anyway, they got me up, and one of the guys used the keys to go into the house, and they asked me, is anybody home? I said, no, it's just me. Well, when they opened the door and heard the music from the radio playing, they kind of freaked a little bit. And they said, you lied. You said nobody was home. And I said, no, I just used the radio because I'm by myself. So they had me to lay face down on the carpet right there by the door, while they proceeded to just go in to the house and just help themselves to whatever they want. And the one with the gun was stayed near where I was, but the other one went throughout the house. And while I'm face down like this, on the ground, you could hear things breaking and all kinds of stuff being ransacked throughout the house as they go from room to room, and you're wondering, okay, what are they taking? So anyway, meanwhile, the one that had the gun, he was in the little den right there near where I was. He was going through the little closet right there, and he kept telling me, do you have a gun? I said, no, sir, I'm a Christian, and I don't keep guns. And he kept telling me, well, I better not find a gun in here, something like that. And so he's ransacking that part of the room, and they were bringing different items. I couldn't see what they were. And as they were bringing different items to take with them, and they've already got the car keys, they would step over me and go and put the stuff into the car, come back, step over me again. I'm not a small person, and they would go back upstairs or do whatever. And they did this for a while. And I remember they took my laptop. I got my personal one, then I've got my state issued one. They wanted me to give me the PIN. We're not supposed to give our password to the state. But of course, when you have a gun pointed at you, so I went ahead and gave it to them. They yanked all the cords out and took the laptops, my son's Xbox, different things, stepped over me, put it in the car. They come back, step over me again. So this went on maybe about 20, 30 minutes. And I would hear periodically them say, hey, well, can we shoot him now? And the one with the gun seemed a little more hesitant. He said, well, no, something, I don't know what he said. They would get some more stuff. And finally, when they were done, the house was a complete wreck. I'm sitting there. Now, this is the part where I just talk about praying. I remember one of your sermons, you talked about the power of prayer. Now, one of the things I do want to mention, there's a different level of fear here. There's a fear like, well, I'm going to be late for work. I don't want to get in trouble, or maybe something like that. But this is a different type of fear, because I'm thinking, I think this is it, Now, thankfully, I didn't have like they do in the movies, where your life flashed before you, something like that, nothing like that. But I remember I just kept praying. I said, Lord, if you just get me, just protect me, get me out of this. And I remember saying, if you do this, this will be a very powerful testimony. I will use this, to your glory,
yes,
and all that. And but then after a while, you begin to get exhausted because you don't know when they're going to shoot, if they're going to shoot, and your emotions are doing this, and you're thinking, maybe they won't shoot. Then the next time, well, maybe they will. And so finally...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So during this whole time, when you're listening to them discussing whether or not to take your life, you were on the floor, you were...
Yeah, I was on the floor face down. Then they told me not to look at their faces. I just remember seeing the white tennis shoes going back and forth, carrying stuff. You hear them yank something, you think, wow, what do they have now? Because it's different as if you're in a dark alley or if you're in a convenience store and they come in, but you're in your house and they're going through all of your private stuff and your personal things. They had me to have my hands clasped behind my head like this, and I remember we had some laundry there and all that. When they got everything that they needed, the whole thing probably lasted maybe 30, 45 minutes. I remember hearing the conversation saying, all right, well, let's hurry up and let's go ahead and shoot him now. And then we can go. And I'm thinking, oh man, I think this is probably it. So finally, one of them says to the other, yeah, but I really want that TV. We had I went to got a used 50-inch flat screen TV that we liked down in the den. And so, one more thing. One of them, I believe, dropped the gun by accident because I heard a click. And the other one says to him, hey, be careful, something like that. So, but anyway, they got the TV, and the TV is really big. Took two of them, and they stepped over me carrying this big thing, could have dropped it on me, and put it in the car. And I thought, okay, as soon as they load the TV up, that's going to be it. Well, they actually were in the process of doing it. So they said, well, we got everything. Let's get ready to go. So they had my car keys, and now there's another spare that I had up in our room. So let's see. They came in, then they shut the door, and they pulled me up just a little far so they can shut the door and everything. And then they took these cords. In fact, I've got them here. If I get let's see. Been a while. The police actually got them and put them in the evidence bag. I've had them for about a year. I never brought myself to open them, but I will, I'm sure, eventually. But they took these cords. These are cable cords you use to plug your cable to your TV and all that kind of stuff. And they proceeded to hog-tie me, where you're lying face down. They bring your knees up and your arms back, and they tie your arms to your feet the other way. So it's kind of hard to breathe. It's almost like you see those people in Hawaii when they got the animal on the spit there. So that's how they tied me up. And they said, it's funny because they seem to get a little more polite. Okay, just lift your foot this way, that way. So I did what I was told. Once they tied me up and I was trying to breathe, I remember then they took a pillow, one of the pillows from the couch. They covered my head with it. They then took a towel, one of the dirty towels. They put it to drape over the pillow that was covering my head. Now I can't see. So I guess so it would make a mess. Now here's the interesting part. At this point I already began to make peace. I said, well, if I'm not going to make it past tonight, that was the interesting thing. I wasn't afraid as to whether I was going to be lost. I said, Lord, I did everything. I tried to do everything that you wanted me to do.
Come on now.
And everything. And if this is the end of my journey, then I hope that, I'll see you. The next thing I do, I'll look and see the face of Jesus. I was really prepared for that and everything. And of course, then I said a prayer for my family. I actually felt the gun on my head. I thought it was their shoe, but it was actually the weapon. But the interesting thing about it, Pastor John, I don't know if it was some kind of a time lapse. I've heard of where your brain somehow blocks certain things out. It was as if they just disappeared. I don't remember them leaving. I don't remember them going out the door. I don't remember, and you're in the garage, everything's more, the sound's magnified. Yeah. I don't remember them starting the car. I don't remember the car leaving. I don't remember anything. I just remember all of a sudden I was alone. And I stayed there probably for about a minute or two until I finally called out and said, "Are you still there?" And I got no answer. I said, I'm thinking to myself, should I move? Or are they there or not? So anyway, I slowly began to move and I didn't hear anybody. I was able to wriggle out of the cords. And once I wriggled myself out and took the towel off my head, took the pillow off my head, the house is a mess. And I looked out, the car was gone. And so I said, okay, I'm going to have to see what I can do if I can call the police somehow. So they're gone. I immediately went and turned off every light in the house in case somebody was hiding. Because if anybody was hiding, then that way I knew places I could go to hide. Right. But than they did. Right. But anyway, so they were gone. I went from room to room to see the damage and different things and things that were taken. But then I remembered, I said, well, my wife's car was still there. So I had a pair of her keys. So I went and grabbed the keys and went in there and started her car up. And left the house as fast as I could because I knew now these fellas have a set of wheels. They can go to the bank and they discover that they don't have the right number. They could come right back with the key. Right. Thinking I'm still tied up and, shoot me then. So I'm going down, and it's funny because I'm going down the road as fast as I can, looking for a policeman. Didn't see one that night. I usually see them. And I'm praying the whole time, shouting and driving at the same time. So then I went to the Walmart there, local Walmart, and I asked the people, can I use your phone? And so I went to, the customer service area is dark, but they had the phone still there. Right. At this point, your mind, you're still paranoid. And so I ended up wedging myself between one of the little cash machines and the front counter there and everything, in case they were to follow me. I didn't know. You thinking, what if they follow me to Walmart? I didn't know. So I called 911 and the police came, they escorted me outside and they didn't know just how serious the situation was. They said, well, sir, tell us what happened. They're thinking when I came home, stuff was gone. Yeah, we'll report this break-in. And when I started telling them about being tied up, and I was like, whoa, what? So they had me to write the whole thing down.
Better write this down.
And they did, but something interesting also happened. On the way back, they says, Mr. Johnson, we'll escort you back to your house. Now, I don't want to go back to the house. So don't worry, we'll be with you. I had about 2 or 3 or 4 police cars escorting me back. But on the way back, there was a head-on collision of accident of 2 cars right in front of us. And I remember looking up and seeing I'm already, the brain's already in a fog. And I saw the car spinning out of control. And I'm thinking if I had been up there just a few seconds, we would have been in that accident. I'm thinking the devil's really trying to get me tonight. Come on now. So I pulled to the side.
But the Lord's really trying to save you.
Yes. I'm sure the Lord said again. The police came by. He said, Mr. Johnson, we're sorry. He told me, you're having quite a night.
Come on
said,
now.
Yes. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll have my deputy go with you and we'll stay here and make sure these guys are okay. So finally, we went down back to my house, and with their expertise, they were able to take their flashlights and they could see footprints around the house and all that. I had left these cords once I got out on the ground and ran. So they took them and bagged them up and bagged some other things for fingerprints and all that kind of stuff. And, everybody has the walkie-talkies on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And while I was talking to him, I heard somebody call into the radio, and you could hear all the radios going, and we heard, "We found the vehicle." Everybody stopped, and I looked, and they said, "Okay, we found the car, but all the stuff had been taken out by then." Mm-hmm. They took all the stuff, the TV, the computers, everything, and they dumped them somewhere, and it rained that night. And then they took it, I think, and put it in someone's shed, and they called it in, the people who owned it. So anyway, and I guess they deal with this kind of stuff all the time. So like, "Well, Miss Johnson, well, sorry, what happened? If you think of anything, call us." I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to sleep here. I can't." They have the key to the house now.
Yeah. And
they could just come right in if they wanted to. So thankfully, I had a couple of the choir members from the church, who's one of them, he happens to be a police officer, and his wife, choir member, let me sleep at their house and everything. That was really, really sweet. But anyway, that was quite an ordeal. It's hard to sleep after that. The nightmares didn't actually come back until my family returned home. Then the nightmares begin, because then you think, well, what if my family had been home that night? Your brain does all this stuff in your imagination. What if they're in the bed asleep and they went and attacked them and I can't do anything and all that? And many people say yes, but they weren't, but you can't help but wonder the what ifs, and the what ifs get worse and worse and all that. But anyways, I was just really, really thankful that my life was spared that night. And again, I promised the Lord that if he would just spare me, I would definitely use it as testimony. Be glad to share the story wherever I go. And if you or anybody else want to tell, by all means, please do, because I'm a living witness that yes, the Lord will step in and right on time and save you. Whatever his will is, that's what he'll do. And thankfully that he heard my prayers that night and everything. So, I appreciate that you give me the opportunity to come into tell my side of the story.
Let me ask you some questions. Some of them a little heavy. The first one is, how, in the wake of this, has this affected you? Are there things that you don't do anymore, that you have a problem with? Are you over it? How do you feel about it? Will you still listen to audiobook in your car? Will you still hang out in the garage? Will you, those kinds of things?
Yes, I do still listen to audiobooks. It helps me when I'm traveling. One thing I will say, I used to, I love the crime shows, because I like to hear the stories of people. For a while, I couldn't listen to those, the crime shows about people, whether it be somebody breaking in or something like that. It took me a minute. And I don't have a problem with it now, but also one time I was coming home in my garage, and the cable in the garage snapped, and I thought it was a gunshot, and I remember feeling the shock, and it was just the cable that snapped and everything. Also, see, I one of my habits, I've become kind of a news junkie. It seemed like. And my wife asked me, "Oh, the news is so depressing, and do we have to see this?" Well, I understand, yeah, the news can be depressing, but that night I was all alone. When they aired on the news, I needed people to hear my story. I somehow don't feel right not listening to theirs, and just turning it off and that type of thing, because, I wouldn't have wanted them to turn it off when, my story was being told. Yes. So that's another habit I have formed, I guess, since then. Pretty much I can think of.
Friends, Moses was on the mountain. You can find this in Exodus 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, talking to God. They said, as friends talking, Moses says to the Lord, "Show me your glory." Wanted to see it all. I'm not mad at Moses. I want to see Jesus, don't you?
Yeah.
But the Lord said, "No man, no woman shall see my face and live." We would be consumed by our sins. But even though we cannot now see the full glory of God face to face, he still shows us his glory in measures through the mighty things that he does in our lives. I was preparing for a sermon at Pastor O'Bannon's church at the Centennial Seventh-day Adventist Church in Las Vegas, Nevada, Friday night, when this story came to me. Dad called and told me what had happened. Man, I was in tears. I had to change the whole sermon. I had to get up the next day and tell what the Lord had done for you.
Wow.
And what do you do after that? Baptismal call. It's time to come down. Oh, first of all, brother, I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
And I am so glad that the Lord preserved your life, but I do know that he preserved your life for a reason. And you think about that as well. As you think about the times the Lord has preserved you. Why did he preserve me? What is my mission? What is the testimony that he wants me to tell? And we must tell it.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your testimony with us. I know it's not an easy story to tell, but man, everybody has really wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
You still live in the Atlanta area?
I do. We did move shortly after, even though our new home is only a few miles away. But I do want to add, I'm thankful that I don't have any difficulty sharing the story. A lot of people can't relive things, but I'm thankful to be able to be where I'm able to talk about it without much difficulty at all. So that's a good thing.
Did they ever catch the guys?
They actually arrested one of them. Interesting story. They caught him somehow. They got good fingerprints on my on the property. And by the way, I got everything back except my 2 cell phones and my son's Xbox. Didn't get those things back. But the computer, the TV, the car, everything was good. My wallet, they got those things back. And they said, we got great fingerprints. So they caught one of them. He was 18 years old, but they needed a confession. And they even had him talking to his mother, and they were listening, and he told his mom, well, we had some things, but it didn't go into details to what happened. They tried to get a confession out of him, but he didn't really say. He didn't want to rat out his friend. So the lawyers were saying, well, but anybody those fingerprints could have gone there anytime. In other words, they could have been my friends, and I'm just, naked fingerprint. And so they called me in also for a photo lineup. And it didn't do too well because I didn't recognize any of them, the young men that they showed me on the photos or anything. But when they said that they did catch one of them, they weren't able to charge him because of that. They needed more evidence, that type of thing. So I think they ended up letting him go. And it is kind of scary knowing that they're on the streets. That year in Atlanta, Georgia, we had a lot of home invasions, because shortly after that we had another family where the father actually was shot. But I'm thankful to be able to share so it can maybe help someone. Yeah.
Guys, as the Lord gives us these testimonies, we must continue to tell them. A little writer by the name of Ellen White says, the only thing we have to fear for the future is except we forget how the Lord has led, delivered, and taught us in the past. So we must rehearse and tell our testimonies. Robert, thank you so much for talking with us today. I know you're my brother, but I'm going to shake your hand. We got to have you back on. Maybe we'll do some singing or something. Hey. At any rate, I'm Pastor Ryan Johnson here with my older brother, Robert Johnson. And as always, friends, be encouraged.
This song reminds me of the hymn, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. This we can always depend on." When the hope you had has disappeared and you've lost your will to try, and you think your ship has just come in, but it keeps on passing by. When you've almost gained the victory and they've left the rest behind, and the marathon has slowed its pace as you reach the finish line, and you round the final corner, but you fall. Depend on me. Depend on me. and you need someone to count on, but no one's there. Depend on me. Depend on me. Depend on me. When the world has let you down, depend on me. When you feel you're losing ground, depend on me. When your love has been denied, when you've lost your earthly pride, you can depend on me. Depend on me. When the world has let you down, depend on me. When you feel you're losing ground, depend on me. When your love has been denied, when you've lost your earthly pride, you can depend on me.
Isn't that amazing? I'll tell you, God is good, and He can deliver us. So have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow as we're having communion streaming live. Please join us. God bless.